So we just passed the 4-year anniversary of The Mandalorian Season 1 premiere. Disney Plus, and specifically this show, marked the dawn of a new era for this franchise. The age of streaming. The Mandalorian would quickly become a pop culture staple, with an ending to the pilot episode that nobody expected after the first appearance of an infant from the Yoda species, Grogu. But back in 2019 we didn't know his name. Grogu broke the internet, and fans have been raving about our favourite father and son duo ever since. I think they're the best thing to have happened to Star Wars in a very long time. The idea of a spin-off, set after Episode 6 Return of the Jedi, was genius. It was a welcome break for Star Wars fans burnt out from the sequel trilogy. In the minds of fans, this long time period between Episodes 6 and 7 was the perfect place for Star Wars to kind of hit reset, to give us a new variety of the galaxy far, far away. In the years leading up to The Mandalorian, the Star Wars fandom felt as though it had taken many hits. We had seen Luke, Han and Leia die, and a year before the sequel trilogy, we saw the expanded universe being relegated to Star Wars Legends continuity. And so along comes Jon Favreau, and he says, look, I'm gonna give you a new show, set just after the original trilogy, where you're getting new heroes, but as Mando Season 2 would prove, some heroes that we know and love from George Lucas's stories. And to this day, I honestly don't think the franchise would be as relevant in 2023 if it wasn't for this beautiful space western born out of the imagination of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. In Season 1, when we're first introduced to Djarin, there was something so mysteriously alluring and charming about a lone gunslinger making his way through the galaxy. A time period not explored on screen. There were books, there were certainly both canon and Legends novels, but we had questions. We expected some grittiness, fast-paced action. What does the seedy underworld look like after Jabba's death? Now that the Empire is gone, what are the power dynamics? Is it a free-for-all? The first season of Mando is crafted in a way that doesn't feel rushed. Not all of our questions are answered, but they are alluded to. There are of course little hints towards the New Republic government, but it's introduced slowly to facilitate a world that feels lived in. There is something so special about the ravishing simplicity and the humanity of such a classic lone wolf and cub tale. And then there's Ludwig Göransson's unique score, a wild departure from John Williams, the unique bass recorder theme that accompanies the thumping suspense in both the writing and directorial execution in the series. So today let us embrace and celebrate the show's original first season. I spent hours giving my thoughts on seasons 2 and 3, but I didn't yet have a channel when Season 1 aired, and so I've given no reviews or reactions for any of those initial 8 episodes. But now is a great opportunity for a deep dive. But for a video such as this, I didn't want to do a sleazy recap of the entire season, I wanted to go for depth. I'd rather pinpoint one special moment for me and explore it. And this is what I believe to be the most underrated episode of the entire series. The Mandalorian Season 1, Chapter 4, Sanctuary. This episode stands out as a real departure in the first season. It's the first time in my opinion the creatives on the show took a real risk, expanding beyond the grey and gritty aesthetic or the sandy deserts, and instead gave us a spot of greenery. In the first 3 episodes we had witnessed how great stagecraft was, but for me, Chapter 4 was the first time ILM demonstrated to us the audience how incredible the volume could be. But this goes beyond mere ornamental and visually pleasing artistry. There is some symbolism to it as well. As we discuss how The Mandalorian Season 1 humanized Djarin, the subtleties in Chapter 4 that contribute to this are often overlooked. We start to see a new side to him, a vulnerable side. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though, let's go from the top. It is a very well-known fact that Akira Kurosawa's films were extremely influential on George Lucas and Dave Filoni, who incorporated Japanese culture, ethos, and samurai imagery into their stories. This was on full display in the Mandalorian episode in question. Overt references come in the form of the plot itself. Din Djarin takes Grogu to the backwater world of Sorgan to try and lie low from the Empire and bounty hunters seeking the 50-year-old baby. After meeting Cara Dune, they take up residence in a simple rural village, which is under threat from Klatooinian raiders. While Din Djarin originally takes up the job to protect the villagers for money's sake, he becomes invested in the people's plight. They train the farmers in combat to help them make a final stand and fend off the threat. This episode is a clear homage to The Magnificent Seven, which itself was a Western remake of Akira Kurosawa's 1954 classic. The Japanese movie sees the 7 warriors come together with a mission of protecting a peasant farming village from invaders during the harvest. The samurai teach their hosts the basics of fighting. What I love about The Sanctuary is it's one of the first times we feel as though this story is truly a part of the wider Star Wars universe. Lothcats, mentions of Endor, the appearance of the AT-ST, and outlets at the time called this episode the Star Wars we're looking for. It may not have gotten as much praise as episodes that followed, but fans appreciated and adored the addition of new tropes into the Star Wars universe. One of the major characters introduced in this episode was Cara Dune, a former Rebel Alliance shock trooper from Alderaan. She speaks of her exploits after the Battle of Endor, mopping up ex-Imperial warlords. Immediately we wanted to learn more. We were sold on her character. Her introduction was one of the most fun action sequences of Season 1. She became a staple of the first 2 seasons. And we have to talk about the idyllic planet that Sorgan was. Krill Ponds, a place for Grogu to socialize with other kids, and for Din to lay low for a while. And another mystery character, Omera, a possible love interest for Din. Well, of course, before Bo-Katan was introduced into live action. It'd be such a shame if we didn't see more of her. Maybe in Season 4, let's wait and see. Now, while Sorgan seemed calm and scenic, it's not. There are marauders who keep pillaging the village, and it ends with the raiders retreating. However, one of the bounty hunters, chasing Grogu with a fob, arrives and almost tries to kill the baby with a sniper rifle. We hear a shot go off, and very similar to the Chapter 1 fake-out with IG-11, it turns out this gunshot was from Cara Dune. She blasted the bounty hunter before he could kill the child. And a fun fact about this bounty hunter, he was from the Kabal species, a callback to the character of Garandon from A New Hope. And with that threat, it was time for Mando to leave, after weeks of spending time with Cara Dune and Omera on Sorgan. A lovely episode that ends with Grogu saying goodbye to the children. It might sound strange, because Seasons 2 and even 3 had some of the most amazing moments of the show. It's episodes like Chapter 4 that demonstrate the simple and innocent roots of this amazing series. And this demonstrated Bryce Dallas Howard's incredible directing talents in the Star Wars universe. The beauty of Season 1 is that every episode was its own adventure, but this one had a softer edge. It was more emotional too. They were able to do something with Djarin that as a viewer you wouldn't have expected. Watching the first 3, as a child who witnessed such a horrendous attack on his parents, and was then saved by the Death Watch, he's got a lot of heart when it comes to protecting others who he sees himself in. The children of Sorgan, but first and foremost, that's Grogu. The Mandalorian has always loved to pull on our heartstrings, and the show has done it ever since. If we look at Season 2 for example, the goodbye at the end of Chapter 16, as Grogu embarks on a new, rather short but still new, adventure with Luke Skywalker. We see the extent to which Djarin would sacrifice anything for his son. He even sold out his beliefs, his religion, never removing his helmet, everything he held so dear, to protect the life of the child. And this is why his so-called redemption in Season 3 seemed a bit regressive in the eyes of many viewers. It seemed like his character was taking a step back, not forward. The story arc has been something special to unveil, and I understand in this video I was just expressing things I love. The Mandalorian has spoken to me as a Star Wars fan in a way I haven't had since the prequel trilogy. I was a prequels kid, but The Mandalorian for me evokes something very heartfelt. So I want to ask you guys, 4 years later, what is your favourite episode of Mando Season 1, but also of the entire show generally? So thank you so much for watching guys, and if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.